always back to Tolkien, and two, when Tolkien was silent, we tried to invent in as Tolkienian a way as possible. Go back to the book, go back to the book, go back to the book.
Yeah.
The lie detector test determined that was a lie.
The genres of fantasy and adventure epics have produced some of the most visually stunning and influential films of all time. One of the most beloved of these is of course Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy, the popularity of which seems to be due to the fact that the filmmakers were directly inspired by Tolkien and wanted to present his work faithfully on the big screen. Amazon's new series, The Rings of Power, however, seems to be taking inspiration from everything but Tolkien's writings, despite what the showrunners claim. What the audience has been shown and what they've been told are two completely different things. But the confusion doesn't stop there. The visual style of The Rings of Power seems to be all over the place, drawing its inspiration from, or rather directly copying, several different films within the genre, all with their own unique style, leading to this inconsistent mess of an end product. The first and most obvious point of inspiration is from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, with much of the cinematography quite clearly attempting to evoke that same feeling. But as I covered in my previous video on The Rings of Power, this gives the images a lifeless feel, since the inspiration behind what made those original images beautiful is gone in the recreation. The next point of visual inspiration Rings of Power takes from is Harry Potter. While there are plenty of differences in these shots with the exact placement of the camera, the lens length, the temperature and placement of the lights, these images are eerily similar in their overall composition, framing their subjects in a low-angle, medium shot just off-center, giving room for their eyeline in relation to the objects that they're holding while dollying into a close-up. Both also use similar lighting techniques, with soft key and fill lights, but keeping the backlight very hot, creating this spotlight sort of effect and a glow around the character. Now, the shot from Harry Potter is much more technically complex and detailed, and I'll be breaking down the cinematography of Harry Potter in more videos to come. The next point Rings of Power takes from is from Game of Thrones, with several images seeming to be ripped straight out of that once iconic show. And while some of these shots could be coincidental, knowing Jeff Bezos' comments on wanting his own version of Game of Thrones, whether he meant that as a cultural moment or not, it now becomes a bit hard not to see the similarities between the images. The last point of visual inspiration doesn't come from a single film, but from a variety of films, as it uses multiple common tropes seen across a variety of films in the fantasy and action genres. These techniques not only are visually lacking in any depth and interest, especially the trope of using a single primary color to fill the screen, but they're overused, giving the Rings of Power a very generic and cheap feeling. Now, taking inspiration from other films and series or using specific shots and lighting techniques isn't inherently a bad thing, as many of the greats have been inspired by others that have came before and created unique works from that initial inspiration to craft films with their own unique visual style. However, the Rings of Power seems to be taking visual cues from so many different places that it's just left without an identity of its own. The beauty of Tolkien's work is stripped away, and what's left is this soulless Frankenstein's monster of visuals, hastily stitched together, copying from many, but truly inspired by or inspiring to none. Thank you for watching, and a huge thank you to all of you who've been watching and commenting on my past video on the Rings of Power. It's an absolute pleasure hearing from you, and if you enjoyed this video as well, make sure to like it, and if you haven't already subscribed, subscribe to this channel for more videos just like this, and comment below with your thoughts on the visual style of the Rings of Power.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.